Welcome to Ask the Attorney, brought to you by the Law Office of Chris Doscotch.
Hello and welcome. I'm Stacey Campbell. We are ready to take your questions. The number to call is 698-3742. You can begin calling right now. Our attorney this evening is Chris Doscotch, probably a familiar face to you. He's a personal injury lawyer with a practice on North Knoxville here in Peoria. Hello, Chris, and welcome.
Hello, good evening.
It's been a little while since you've been here.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
good to be back.
Well, good. It's good to have you back. So let's just start for any of our viewers that may not be familiar with you, who you are, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Injury work comp lawyer located over on Knoxville. Been doing this for 25 years in this area. Was in the National Guard in Peoria. So been in this area a long time, serving I think over 6,000 clients.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know you like to educate people, and you like to help people not get into some of the situations that you see in cases that you handle every day. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight is auto insurance, because you think most people don't have enough. Isn't that right?
Correct. And, you know, understanding the different types of policies, talking to your agent, asking questions, because information, I think, is helpful or powerful, and it's part of being an aggressive lawyer or is someone who's proactive. So even though people need to come to a lawyer, it's helpful if you kind of know what's going on beforehand. Hopefully we have less issues to deal with down the road if that's the case.
Yeah, so you say most people don't carry enough auto insurance, so tell me why you say that. What are some of the things that you see?
Well, the most common, the first thing that struck me when I became a lawyer was someone was severely injured, no fault of their own, bills were high, and the insurance coverage was insufficient.
Yeah.
So the case was worth much more. The person wasn't made whole because it's very hard to collect. You can, but it's hard to collect something from someone personally, because the driver that caused the accident didn't have the right coverage, and the person didn't have the right coverage for themselves as well.
Yeah, so very important to have the right coverage. And you say definitely for sure talk to your agent to figure out what's right for you.
Right.
So let's talk about the different types of auto insurance and what you think people should carry.
Okay, yeah, there's several types for auto. You have, of course, collision and comprehensive. That's if you hit a pole and damage your vehicle, or you cause the accident. Your car damage is covered. If you don't have collision, you may, you know, if your car's older, I don't carry collision any longer. If you have a newer car, you got a loan on a car, you better have collision. If it hails on it, that's what comprehensive covers. You have car rental insurance, which isn't a big deal, you think, until you start paying $30 a day for a month.
Yeah.
And everybody wishes they had car rental insurance when they don't.
Yes.
Medical pay coverage, that's regardless of whoever's fault it is. Could be $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. Some companies do $50. They'll pay medical bills, even if it's your fault or someone else's, your own company. And we'll talk about this maybe later. If your company pays some of your medical bills up to your limit of $10,000 and you recover from someone else, you pay your company back. Then you have liability, and that's what you, for the pain and suffering or your injuries. Which I think, you know, and what I do, I think is the most important part to have. And then you have uninsured and underinsured for the injury part of it, and even for something like property damage. Like if you have an expensive car and somebody only has $25,000 in property damage, you're not going to get that difference made up unless you have it. If you're injured severely and the other driver has very low limits, $25,000, and you have a case that's worth $100,000, that underinsurance fills the gap. So you're paying for extra insurance in case someone who causes the accident either doesn't have insurance or they have not enough. So it's an extra layer of coverage, which I think is the most important to have.
And so now you told me that like the 5 biggest cases that you've had recently all stem from people who have not had enough insurance. Their limits have been too low. What should people have?
Well, I mean, obviously some of it depends on what you can afford and what works for you. But a lot of people want a low deductible if they get damage to their car, $100, $250. Raise that deductible to lower your premium to $1,000, because you can absorb that extra $500 in a deductible.
Maybe you can't absorb the thousands and thousands of dollars of for medical bills or
Right,
whatever.
if you have a broken leg and you have to stand and you can't work for 6
Yeah.
months, get the higher level of liability and underinsured, because really what insurance is, it wants to help you if there's something more severe or major
Right.
that occurs. That
Yeah.
other little bit on the, so if it becomes a money issue, raise your deductible on your collision, increase your liability limits, and
Right.
provide yourself coverage for you or your family in case something
Catastrophic happens,
Yeah.
because if you're facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in bills, suddenly that extra $500 in your deductible doesn't seem so
doesn't
bad.
seem that's the one thing I've learned, and
Yeah.
I cannot say enough because I see it constantly.
Yeah. We do have some questions coming in. This is from
Okay.
Samantha. I was rear-ended in the snowstorm a few weeks ago and suffered a minor injury and damage to my car. The driver slid on the ice and could not completely stop. The insurance company for the other driver is denying, saying it was an act of God. Do I have a case?
In that fact scenario, I would say yes.
Okay.
I don't see the act of God defense that much for weather. Act of God means if something happens just outside your own, because in negligence, you got to do something wrong. But normally when there's a snowstorm or something, you have to drive for the conditions. So if you're sliding into someone,
Yeah.
you're driving too fast.
Yeah.
Act of God to me is more a tornado comes down and causes somehow an accident, or if you have a medical event when driving with no warning beforehand,
Yeah.
and then you get in an accident, you're not responsible, because how would you know?
Yeah.
That's more of an act of God. That they should call me or a lawyer for that, because that's
Somebody,
not
yeah.
a good defense.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, it's actually time for us to take a break already.
Okay.
So stick around because we are going to be talking more auto insurance and what you should do if you can't afford to carry a higher limit. We'll touch on that again. Stick around. We are back with Chris Doscotch, a personal injury lawyer here in Peoria, taking your questions, 698-3742. You can call now if you have a question for Chris. We've been talking about auto insurance and how to protect yourself by carrying a high limit. And Chris, you say, at least I think you said this, that you should carry a limit of about $100,000.
At least.
Why is that?
Well, medical bills, a few days in the hospital, you're going to be up at around 100,000.
Wow.
So when the limits were passed long ago, medical was a lot less.
Yeah.
So to equal the cost of the bills, the insurance. So it usually goes up in increments from 100 to 250, and then from there you get into additional or umbrella coverage.
And so we touched on this, a little bit in the last segment, but if you're just joining us, so what if you can't afford a higher limit like that? You say raise your deductible.
Raise the deductible, move that up, and get your liability up to at least 100, if not to 250,000, because it's more costly on your policy actually to have a lower deductible than it is to have higher liability. And that's why you want to talk to an agent.
Yeah.
Buying it over the computer may be a little cheaper, but I would talk to somebody. You're not getting the professional advice you need. You need an agent.
Okay. And Jill, actually, that was her question. How much insurance should I have? So you say 100,000 at least.
At least 100,000 on the liability. If not, if you can afford more, obviously, if you can afford more, then do more.
Then do more. Okay. Now, this question has come in as well. Can you use text messages from your boss in a work comp case? So this is not insurance, work comp, but you do work comp
Right.
cases.
This is a question we get all the time. Yes.
Okay.
Just like they can use your social media against you. So if you have something like what happens in a work comp case, sometimes they say the injury wasn't reported to their boss. But there's text messages back and forth talking about being hurt and going to the doctor. You can then it's not a who said what. If you have it written in a text message, it ends that issue.
Yeah.
But it could go the other way too. If you're texting things that don't help you and your boss has it, it could be used the other way. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And we are taking your calls. The number is 698-3742, so feel free to call and ask Chris a question. It doesn't cost anything to ask you a question tonight, right?
No cost tonight,
No
no
charges.
charges for a consultation or to
That's
talk
right.
over the phone.
Yeah, and you can call him anytime and ask
Paid
him a
at the
question.
end.
Yes, okay. So let's get back to insurance because I do have some more questions. You have some other recommendations for insurance, like uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. What does all of that mean?
That's the one where I was talking about where if the other driver has low limits, get it, you become, so if they have 25 and you have 100, you have another 75,000 in coverage. And then an umbrella is where you, and this is two ways. One, an umbrella insures you in case you cause an accident so that your assets aren't taken. So it gives you extra protection personally.
Right.
And it also helps you, like on my umbrella, I have underinsured coverage. So if something happened in an accident, I would have underinsured coverage that goes higher than my liability limits. Again, it comes down to an economic question, but it's something you want to talk about, and your agent can tell you whether it's appropriate for you.
Well, and I think it's so important to talk to an agent because it's confusing. I mean, just sitting here and hearing you talk about it, it's confusing. So talking with somebody who knows what they're talking about. Ask questions.
What these things are, know a little bit about what they are. They'll know your financial, your job status, family, are you single, what your needs are, and then they can tailor it to what's best.
All right, we've got another question. This is from Pamela. Was rear-ended at a gas station. She was provided the insurance company information and gave it to her insurance company and couldn't get in contact with them. Should her insurance company pay for the damage? She was rear-ended.
At a gas station.
At a gas station. She was provided the insurance company information, I'm assuming, from the person who rear-ended her.
Well, I mean, in that case, if you can't get a hold of the other side, you got to have collision on your policy first, or you're not going to get anything paid for, and that's a real issue.
Okay.
So yes, you can turn it into yours. Your company will go after the other insurance company and get your deductible back.
Okay.
If you do have collision, another tip I have is if you have property damage and it's not your fault, get an estimate from your company as to the value of your vehicle. If it's totaled and theirs, take the best deal.
Oh, that is a good tip.
Why not? Yeah, if your company's going to pay you more, you'll get your deductible back, but I would do that.
Okay.
Because insurance companies I hate to say it, they do try to chintz on the value of the vehicle because you need a car.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of leverage over you. So you want to get, your loan may be a little bit more than the value of the vehicle. So I would always get a comparison if you have the collision.
Okay. This question is from Mike. His wife has had hand problems, and the doctor said that she has carpal tunnel. She turned into work comp and says compensatable. I don't know if that's compensable. Is there anything she can do?
All right, so they're probably saying it's not work-related.
Okay.
And since 2011, there's been a lot of denial of carpal tunnel cases and work injuries.
Oh, okay.
That's what you usually get from, most of the time it's from, in a work comp setting, from repetitive use, forceful gripping, using your hands a lot, typing. But any of the less rigorous jobs, office work, not as repetitive, alternating work, a lot of those cases are being denied. It may be you have to have a doctor that says your work's a causative factor, not the only factor. So you need to check with your doctor and then talk to a lawyer with your job description. We can see. It might be.
Okay, all right. This is from Bob. If he lets someone borrow his car and they are in an accident and their damage exceeds his policy, can they come after him personally?
Okay, if the insurance follows the vehicle, the liability for the accident follows the person above the policy.
Okay.
So
he is
like
liable.
For example, my son has insurance at a lower limit than we do. If he causes an accident and someone is severely injured and he only has $100,000 in coverage and the case is worth $500,000, they cannot come after me as the parent.
Okay.
Because I'm not responsible personally for his driving. So my insurance would cover that I purchased for him, but if there's anything above that, the person who caused the accident would have to pay. So as long as you loan the car to somebody who is a licensed, responsible person, like if you knew they were drunk and you said, here's my keys, take the car for a ride, then you could be personally liable.
Okay.
But if you don't have any reason to doubt their ability to drive, you're not going to be personally liable, just your insurance. The person that caused it would be.
Okay. Oh, all right. That's good to know. And this question is from Faye. Had a workers' comp injury 2 years ago, re-injured the same knee. They finally did an MRI and told her it was arthritis. Is her job liable for her medical procedures?
Okay, arthritis, everybody has it. The older you get, I have a feeling everybody has more.
Yeah.
So, but not all
At least
arthritis.
that's what my mother tells me.
Yes. I know, I can attest to this,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but not all arthritis hurts.
Okay.
So if you have an accident that aggravates it or makes the pain worse, then that can be a case. So the MRI, even though it shows arthritis, it's going to depend on your symptoms. Did you go to your family doctor a lot? Are there any knee complaints in there? No.
Okay.
So that would support that the accident aggravated, made the symptoms worse or made it become symptomatic. Again, you need a doctor to say that, you know, whether they will or not, and if they do, it's a case. So having a previous problem does not rule out having a case. You can aggravate a pre-existing condition.
Okay. And I know we've talked a lot of workers' comp in the past. It's real confusing. So if you ever think you should talk to an attorney and also go to the doctor, right?
Like those are two, yes. And those are two things right there.
See, I've learned something.
Repetitive trauma cases, and if you got pre-existing conditions, to get into a lawyer or talk to somebody sooner. You don't always have to hire them right away, but it's good to have information. So if you do down the road, we're being proactive and not reacting or fixing issues.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, it's time for us to take another break, but we are going to be back to talk more about auto insurance and anything else you want to talk about, including this word, which I didn't know what it meant before this, subrogation. We will explain what it means. Stick around.
Okay, thanks.
And we are back with Chris Doscotch. He is a personal injury lawyer here in Peoria. Call now with your questions, 698-3742. You can ask any question. We're kind of talking about auto insurance, but we've had some workers' comp questions, which have been good. And so we've talked about the different types of insurance. We've talked about the limits that you should carry. You mentioned this word to me the other day when we were talking about the show, and I know you want to talk about liens and subrogation.
Okay.
And I'd be willing to bet most people don't know what subrogation is. I didn't know. So tell me what it is.
And the reason I want to do, I think it's important because this comes up a lot. Illinois, we've talked about this before, is a fault state. So if someone else is at fault for your accident, you do not receive money until the end of the case for your bills, wage loss, anything.
Okay.
Medical providers don't have to wait till your case is over in an injury case.
They want to be paid.
They want to be paid.
Yeah.
What's the most important thing you got going for you to get a mortgage? You know, credit. Your insurance rates are tied to your credit. So you don't want to be turned into a collection agency. So if you got Medicare, Medicaid, group health insurance, the medical pay on your car, let them pay your bills. At the end of the case, when you recover from the person who caused the accident, then we deal with these people to make sure they get paid back.
Okay.
But it keeps people off your back, things off your credit. It actually puts additional money in your pocket, makes it easier to resolve the case so you don't end up in litigation.
Right.
And so it's important, but I have had people who come in, they're into collection agency, they've been sued over bills with group health insurance, and they're like, well, it's not my fault. My insurance shouldn't pay for it.
Yeah.
No, they should, and then we'll pay them back.
Yeah.
They will get paid back, but it prevents all those other things from occurring. So that's why I wanted to stress.
Yeah, no, that's good to understand because I think those are some of the things that maybe we don't think about when we're thinking of insurance, so that's good. Julia sent in a question, why can I only collect the policy limits? My lawyer says that is the most I can get.
Okay, that is, if that's what, which you're calling, so I'm going to say that's what they're telling you is that's all you can collect. That's not accurate. But that's what happens most of the time, because most of the time people will take bankruptcy if you try to collect from them personally. If they have the ability to pay out of their pocket, generally they'll have more insurance. But all you can collect from the insurance company is the policy limit. If your judgment is more than the policy limit, that person is technically liable for it, and you could try to collect from them personally. Not that easy. And frequently, unless there's drunk driving or something involved, they would just take bankruptcy, so it's in essence an uncollectible debt. Okay.
Jim has a question. How much more money do you get by going to court? Probably depends.
Unknown, depends.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I've never had anyone call me and say, oh, I had a settlement and they're upset because they settled their case.
Yeah.
There's a lot of relief in getting that done.
Yeah.
In going to court, you're leaving the decision or case up to people who have no training in that area, and anything can happen. There's a lot of uncertainty, but you can get more in court. There's more cost, the time going to court. So there's pluses and minuses. It depends on each case.
Yeah.
You know, going to court's a lot easier if they're offering nothing because you have no choice.
Yeah.
But the more they offer, the more, you know, risk there is. So you just, you know, you have to case by case it.
Okay. This question is from Sharon. Can her employer make her pay 100% of insurance while she's on work comp?
Yes.
What does that mean? I don't understand what that question
Well, when
means.
people are on work comp, they receive 2/3 of their pay tax-free through the work comp insurance.
Uh-huh.
But you're still responsible unless you have a contract or an employment where your employer pays 100%, which employers should if they can.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion.
Yeah.
But if they don't, and you have a employee portion that you have to pay and contribute to, you still owe that amount.
Okay.
Some employers will cover it and then you pay it back when you return.
Yeah.
Some people don't pay it and then they lose their insurance and they have to have their insurance offered up. And then some places you just send in a check separately because you do not want to lapse in coverage. I've had people on comp that haven't paid it, their insurance was
boy.
canceled, and then have had a heart attack.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
And they have these bills, so
Yeah.
you have to, that's something you got to talk to your employer about to make sure there's no disruption in coverage and how that could be worked out.
Yeah, that would not be a good situation. Christine's question, how does the Illinois Injured Workers Act work if your job doesn't have workers' comp and your case is heard by them?
Okay, that's a separate entity that is paid through, in essence, a tax to employers to cover against people not having insurance. They've made the penalties much stiffer for a lack of insurance. I'd rather be going against a solvent insurance company than the injured benefit non-insurance fund. It's slower, it takes longer, but eventually you should be able to recover some money through that fund. It's just not a easy process.
And not a quick process, yeah. Question from Julie, if she's in an auto accident and another person is at fault, how does she know how much she should accept for pain and suffering?
There's no guideline. So I would say, first off, if you're not sure, call a lawyer and ask.
I was just say, haven't I heard you say before, don't just automatically settle?
Right. I mean, people think there's always 3 offers. I mean, there's no rules. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of companies right now are barely offering anything above the medical bills for pain and suffering. There's no chart. If you told someone, you know, think of a jury, broke your arm, off work 6 months, got, you know, full range of motion back, but still have daily pain, how much is that worth? Ask 10 people and you're not going to get the same answer.
Right.
So you kind of get an idea as a lawyer what the insurance companies are willing to pay without going to court. Otherwise, a jury determines it. So, and some of it's driven by, is there scarring, how much pain, how did you turn out at the end, how much were your medical bills, were there lost wages, are there aggravating liability factors? So a lot of things go into that calculation. How strong is your doctor testifying for you? All those different things. So every case is a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Andrea has a question. Is she entitled to a copy of her medical records?
Yes, we are entitled, but you got to go through a process. It's not that easy because it's all outsourced now, and you got to pay for them.
Yeah.
Some places will give them to you for free,
Okay.
but you are entitled to that, just like you're entitled to your employment file.
Okay.
You can always request your personnel file, and they have to provide it with you in so many days, and you pay for the copies. But you are entitled to see they are your medical records.
Yeah. We're just about out of time already. I can't hardly believe it. The show always goes so quickly. So we wanted to mention that anytime anybody has a question, they can call you. There's no charge for calling you, right?
Yep.
If they want a consultation, if they want to find out if they have a case, and I imagine you get a fair amount of that. People calling, just wondering.
Call. You can send an email. There's no charge. And like I said, find out. Ask questions, and we'll do what we can.
Yeah, we've got your information up on the screen right now. And so you've got your office on North Knoxville. People can call 681-9770 if they want to get in contact with you. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, just hope everyone has a great holiday, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and you have a great holiday. It's always such, you're always so enlightening. I learn something every time, and I feel good tonight. I feel like I've retained things from past shows.
Yes.
So thanks
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Chris, and
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you so much for joining us. Have a great evening.